96% of all marine life vanished in less than 100,000 years. Earth became a graveyard. This wasn't the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. This happened 200 million years earlier, and it was worse. Much worse. Welcome to the Permian Triassic extinction event, the moment life on Earth nearly ended forever. Around 252 million years ago, something catastrophic unfolded. The planet didn't just experience a bad day or a rough century. It endured geological violence on a scale that makes every other extinction look modest by comparison. When paleontologists first began piecing together what happened at the boundary between the Permian and Triassic periods, they uncovered something deeply unsettling. The fossil record showed a world teeming with complexity and diversity, then suddenly, almost nothing. Scientists call it the Great Dying, and that name barely captures the horror. Imagine walking through a forest where every tree stands dead and silent. Picture oceans where fish float lifeless at the surface as far as the eye can see. Envision continents where the very soil turns toxic and rivers run thick with decay. That was Earth during this extinction. Life didn't just take a hit. It got obliterated from nearly every ecosystem simultaneously. The numbers tell a story that's hard to grasp emotionally. 81% of marine species disappeared. 70% of terrestrial vertebrates went extinct. Even insects, those notoriously resilient survivors, lost entire orders. Trilobites, ancient armored creatures that had crawled across ocean floors for over 250 million years, vanished completely. Coral reefs, which had built intricate underwater cities for eons, collapsed so thoroughly that reef building stopped for 14 million years. Forests died en masse. The planet's green lungs simply gave out. What makes this extinction truly terrifying isn't just the scale. It's the speed. Early estimates suggested the dying unfolded over millions of years, giving species time to adapt or migrate. As dating methods improved, that timeline collapsed. Recent research indicates the main pulse of extinction occurred in perhaps 60,000 years. Some scientists argue it happened even faster, in as little as 8,000 years. On geological timescales, that's instantaneous. Evolution, which needs time to work its magic, couldn't keep pace. But here's what really happened before everything fell apart. The Permian period was a time of strange beauty. All of Earth's continents had merged into a single massive landmass called Pangaea. This supercontinent stretched from pole to pole, creating climates and ecosystems unlike anything we see today. The interior regions, thousands of kilometers from any ocean, became vast deserts where temperatures swung between blistering heat and bone-chilling cold. Coastal areas supported diverse life, but the heart of Pangaea was brutal. Life had adapted remarkably well to these conditions. Synapsids, the ancestors of mammals, dominated the land. Creatures like Dimetrodon, with its distinctive sail-like back, prowled as apex predators. Massive herbivores such as mosechops grazed in herds. In the oceans, biodiversity exploded. Brachiopods, ancient shellfish unrelated to modern clams, covered the seafloor in dense colonies. Ammonoids, spiral-shelled relatives of squid, hunted through the water column. Sea scorpions, some reaching over 2 meters in length, ruled as marine predators. The planet hummed with activity. Forests of seed ferns and conifers spread across habitable zones. Insects had diversified into countless forms. Complex food webs connected every ecosystem. Earth wasn't paradise, but it was stable, functioning, alive. Species had found their niches and settled into patterns that could have continued indefinitely. Then Siberia began to tear itself apart. Deep beneath what is now central Russia, something unprecedented started happening. Magma from the mantle began forcing its way toward the surface on a scale the planet had rarely witnessed. This wasn't a single volcano preparing to erupt. This was the formation of what geologists call a large igneous province, specifically the Siberian Traps. The name sounds almost quaint until you understand what it represents. The Siberian Traps eruptions continued for roughly 2 million years, spanning the Permian Triassic boundary itself. During that time, volcanic activity covered an area larger than modern Europe with layer upon layer of basaltic lava. In some regions, the lava piled up over 3 kilometers thick. The volume of material ejected makes Yellowstone look insignificant. One researcher described it perfectly: it's literally a singular event in Earth's history. It's a monster. It makes Yellowstone look like the head of a pin. But the lava itself wasn't the main killer. As magma rose through Earth's crust, it encountered vast deposits of coal, salt, and limestone. These sedimentary layers had accumulated over hundreds of millions of years, locking away enormous quantities of carbon and other elements. When superheated magma cooked through these deposits, it triggered chemical reactions that released catastrophic amounts of gases into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide poured out in volumes that defy easy comprehension. Scientists estimate the eruptions released 100,000 billion metric tons of CO2. That number is so large it becomes abstract. To put it in perspective, modern human civilization releases about 10 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide annually. The Siberian Traps, over their active period, released the equivalent of 10,000 years of current human emissions every single year. The atmospheric concentration of CO2 didn't just rise. It exploded to 13 times pre-extinction levels. The greenhouse effect kicked in with unprecedented force. Global temperatures began climbing rapidly, rising by 6 to 10 degrees Celsius within a geological eye blink. Polar ice disappeared. Tundra ecosystems vanished as temperate conditions spread to the highest latitudes. The tropics, already warm, became furnaces where few organisms could function. Along with carbon dioxide came sulfur dioxide. When released in massive quantities, SO2 reacts with water vapor to form sulfuric acid. Acid rain began falling across the planet. Soils turned toxic. Lakes and rivers acidified. Plants struggled to photosynthesize as their leaves became damaged. The very chemistry of rain, normally a source of life, turned destructive. Ocean chemistry shifted in equally devastating ways. As atmospheric CO2 levels soared, the oceans absorbed enormous quantities of it. When CO2 dissolves in seawater, it forms carbonic acid, lowering the pH and making the water more acidic. Organisms that built calcium carbonate shells and skeletons, including most reef-building corals, brachiopods, and many plankton species, found themselves in an impossible situation. The chemical reactions needed to construct their protective structures simply stopped working efficiently. Warming oceans created another lethal problem. Water holds less dissolved oxygen at higher temperatures. As the seas warmed, oxygen levels dropped. Simultaneously, the warming disrupted ocean circulation patterns. Normally, cold water sinks at the poles and travels along the ocean floor toward the equator, carrying oxygen to deep waters. As polar temperatures rose, this circulation weakened. Deep ocean zones became oxygen-starved, creating what scientists call anoxic conditions. In some regions, conditions deteriorated even further into euxinia, where waters become not just oxygen-poor but actively toxic with hydrogen sulfide. This nasty compound, which smells like rotten eggs, is produced by certain bacteria thriving in oxygen-free environments. Pulses of hydrogen sulfide-rich water may have risen to the surface, poisoning marine life and even releasing toxic gas into the atmosphere. Recent research has added another layer to this catastrophe. Scientists studying oxygen isotopes in fossilized conodont teeth, tiny extinct eel-like creatures, discovered something unexpected about temperature patterns. Normally, Earth maintains strong temperature gradients between the equator and poles. During the Permian Triassic extinction, these gradients collapsed. Temperatures became remarkably uniform across latitudes. The culprit appears to be mega El Niño events. Today's El Niño brings temporary warming to the Pacific and disrupts weather globally for a year or two. During the extinction, similar but far more intense events persisted for decades or even centuries. These mega El Niños created positive feedback loops. Warming intensified, which triggered more warming, which caused more disruption. Species simply couldn't adapt to climate patterns that refused to stabilize. On land, vegetation began dying on a massive scale. The fossil record reveals something called a fungal spike, elevated levels of fungal remains in rock layers corresponding to the extinction boundary. When scientists find this pattern, it indicates forests dying faster than they can decompose normally. Fungi thrive on dead organic matter, and suddenly they had more food than they could process. Nearly all the world's trees died. Dense gymnosperm woodlands that had covered high-latitude regions disappeared. The Glossopteris flora, seed ferns that dominated southern continents, collapsed around 370,000 years before the actual boundary. Their demise shows up indirectly in geological records through an abrupt change in river patterns. When rooted plants die off, rivers transform from meandering systems with stable banks into braided systems that constantly shift and erode. As forests vanished, one of Earth's primary carbon sinks disappeared with them. Plants pull CO2 from the atmosphere through photosynthesis. When the plant biosphere collapsed, this crucial mechanism for regulating atmospheric carbon stopped functioning. The planet lost its ability to naturally counteract the ongoing volcanic emissions. Carbon dioxide accumulated even faster, accelerating warming in a vicious cycle. The extinction didn't happen uniformly. Geographic patterns reveal crucial information about the kill mechanisms. High-latitude species, particularly those in polar regions, suffered the worst losses. Near-complete extinction struck these areas. Tropical species fared somewhat better, though still experiencing catastrophic losses. This pattern makes sense when you consider the combined effects of temperature and oxygen. Marine organisms have specific thermal tolerances and oxygen requirements. As water warmed, their metabolism sped up, increasing their oxygen demands precisely when available oxygen was dropping. For species already living near their thermal limits, there was nowhere to go. Polar species couldn't migrate toward cooler waters because those waters no longer existed. The extinction unfolded in pulses. Evidence suggests 1 to 3 distinct phases when death rates spiked. Some species made it through the first wave only to succumb during subsequent crises. This pattern hints at multiple triggers or cascading effects where initial impacts created conditions that generated additional disasters. What happened next would determine whether life on Earth could recover, or whether the planet would remain a desolate wasteland for millions of years. The mechanisms of death were clear enough, but survival would prove far more mysterious. In the oceans, survivors faced a world transformed beyond recognition. The water itself had become hostile. Hydrogen sulfide, that rotten egg smell you associate with swamps and sewage, now permeated vast stretches of ocean. Under normal conditions, oxygen-breathing bacteria dominate marine ecosystems. When oxygen disappears, different microbes take over. Anaerobic bacteria produce hydrogen sulfide as a metabolic byproduct. During the Permian Triassic extinction, hydrogen sulfide levels rose so high that the gas didn't just stay dissolved in deep water. It bubbled up to the surface and escaped into the atmosphere. Imagine swimming in an ocean that smells like 1,000 rotten eggs. That's not even the worst part. Hydrogen sulfide is toxic to most complex life. It interferes with cellular respiration, essentially poisoning organisms from the inside. Marine creatures that managed to survive warming and oxygen depletion now had to contend with water that was actively poisonous. The geological record preserves evidence of these euxinic conditions, oxygen-free waters rich in hydrogen sulfide, in rock formations worldwide. Black shales containing high concentrations of pyrite, fool's gold, mark these deadly zones. But certain organisms found ways to persist. The survivors weren't random. Research examining 4 critical factors revealed patterns in who lived and who died. Position in the water column mattered enormously. Bottom-dwelling organisms, those living directly in sediment, suffered catastrophic losses. Creatures called bioturbators, animals that burrow through seafloor sediments mixing nutrients and oxygen, nearly vanished. The loss of this mixed sedimentary layer appears in the geological record as a stark boundary. Below it, sediments show signs of active life. Above it, nothing but undisturbed layers. Shell mineralization determined survival odds. Organisms with heavily calcified shells, thick protective armor built from calcium carbonate, died in disproportionate numbers. The problem was ocean acidification. As atmospheric CO2 dissolved into seawater, it formed carbonic acid. This lowered ocean pH, making it harder for creatures to extract calcium carbonate from water and build shells. Organisms that relied on thick shells for protection found themselves unable to maintain their defenses. Their shells literally began dissolving. Creatures with lighter calcification fared better. Brachiopods, ancient shellfish that superficially resemble clams, experienced massive losses. But the species that survived generally had thinner shells and more active control over their internal circulation. They possessed elaborate gas exchange mechanisms that let them extract oxygen more efficiently from oxygen-poor water. Simple breathing apparatuses became death sentences. Species diversity within a genus also predicted survival. Groups with many closely related species distributed across different environments had better odds. If one species went extinct, related forms might survive elsewhere and later repopulate empty habitats. Groups with just 1 or 2 species in limited ranges disappeared completely when their specific environment collapsed. Sensitivity to acidification was the final critical factor. Some organisms simply couldn't tolerate pH changes. Others showed remarkable resilience. The survivors weren't necessarily stronger or more complex. They were flexible. Generalist species that could eat various foods, tolerate different temperatures, and adapt their behavior had advantages specialists lacked. On land, the picture was equally grim but followed different rules. 8 entire orders of insects vanished. Think about that. Not just species or genera, but whole orders, taxonomic groups representing millions of years of evolutionary divergence. Modern insects are incredibly diverse, with over 1 million described species. The Permian Triassic extinction wiped out fundamental branches of the insect family tree that had existed since the Carboniferous. 2/3 of tetrapod families disappeared. These were the dominant land animals, the synapsids, and early reptiles that had ruled terrestrial ecosystems for tens of millions of years. Massive herbivores that browsed on vegetation, apex predators with saber-like teeth, all gone. The speed of this collapse is what makes it so striking. These weren't species teetering on the edge of extinction before the catastrophe hit. Many were abundant and widespread right up until the boundary. Trilobites, those iconic armored arthropods that had crawled across seafloors for over 250 million years, finally met their end. They'd survived 4 previous mass extinctions. They'd adapted to countless environmental changes. They'd diversified into thousands of species occupying every marine niche imaginable. None of it mattered. The Permian Triassic extinction erased them completely. Reef building stopped. For 14 million years afterward, no significant reef structures formed in shallow seas. Reefs are biodiversity hotspots, complex three-dimensional habitats that support enormous numbers of species. When reefs disappeared, they took their dependent ecosystems with them. The absence of reefs in early Triassic oceans reveals just how thoroughly marine ecosystems had collapsed. The basic ecological architecture that supports diverse life was gone. Tabulate and rugose corals, the primary reef builders of the Paleozoic, went extinct. Modern coral reefs are built by scleractinian corals, a completely different group that evolved later. The reefs we know today aren't descendants of Permian reefs. They're new constructions built by new organisms that emerged millions of years after the catastrophe. So what actually survived? The list is surprisingly short and decidedly unglamorous. Small terrestrial vertebrates made it through, particularly those that could burrow underground or shelter in crevices. Body size had become a liability. Large animals need more food, more oxygen, more stable conditions. When all three became scarce simultaneously, being small and undemanding became the ultimate survival strategy. Certain fish lineages persisted, mostly small-bodied forms that could tolerate low oxygen. Sharks, surprisingly, came through relatively intact. Their cartilaginous skeletons required less calcium than bony fish, giving them an edge as ocean chemistry shifted. They could also regulate their internal salt balance more effectively, helping them cope with changing ocean chemistry. Amphibians showed remarkable resilience. Their ability to breathe through their skin supplemented lung capacity, allowing them to extract oxygen from both air and water. Many could also enter dormant states during harsh conditions, essentially waiting out the worst phases. Some amphibian lineages that made it through the extinction would later give rise to the ancestors of modern frogs and salamanders. Early reptiles, particularly small insectivorous forms, survived in decent numbers. Their scaly skin reduced water loss, crucial as climates became more arid. Their eggs with protective shells didn't require standing water, allowing them to reproduce away from increasingly hostile aquatic environments. These survivors formed the foundation for the later radiation of reptiles during the Triassic, eventually leading to dinosaurs. But the real story of survival belongs to organisms you wouldn't expect. Lystrosaurus, a dicynodont about the size of a pig, became the most abundant land vertebrate in the early Triassic. Before the extinction, Lystrosaurus was just one of many synapsid species. Afterward, it accounted for roughly 90% of terrestrial vertebrate fossils. Not because it was superior, but because almost everything else had died. This phenomenon has a name: disaster taxa. These are species that explode in abundance immediately after mass extinctions, not through competitive superiority but through sheer lack of competition. Lystrosaurus didn't outcompete other species. It simply inherited an empty planet. The fossil record from the early Triassic shows something bizarre. Before the extinction, communities varied dramatically from place to place. Different continents hosted different species adapted to local conditions. After the extinction, the same handful of species appeared everywhere. Fossils from South Africa look nearly identical to those from Antarctica, Russia, and China. The entire planet became monotonous. Scientists use a striking analogy. If someone asked you today where to find kangaroos, you'd say Australia. Now imagine a catastrophe occurred and suddenly kangaroos showed up in North America, Europe, Asia, everywhere. That's essentially what happened in the early Triassic. Geographic barriers that normally keep species separated became meaningless because so few species remained. Marine environments showed the same pattern. A few disaster taxa, mostly small bivalves and simple brachiopods, dominated oceans worldwide. Species that previously existed only in specific regions suddenly had global distributions. Not through dispersal or migration, but because everything else had vanished, leaving them alone on an empty stage. The survivors weren't thriving. They were persisting in a world that remained fundamentally unstable for millions of years after the initial extinction pulses. Atmospheric carbon dioxide levels continued climbing, driven by ongoing volcanic activity in Siberia. The Siberian Traps weren't a single explosive event like later asteroid impacts. They represented sustained eruption over roughly 2 million years, with peak activity coinciding precisely with the extinction boundary. Magma punched through coal deposits and organic-rich sediments, essentially cooking them and releasing massive quantities of greenhouse gases. Not just carbon dioxide, but methane, a far more potent warming agent. Temperature records preserved in ancient tooth enamel tell a brutal story. Conodonts, tiny eel-like creatures with mineralized teeth, left behind a thermal archive. Their oxygen isotope ratios reveal that global temperatures spiked by 6 to 10 degrees Celsius. That doesn't sound catastrophic until you realize this warming happened over perhaps 100,000 years. For evolution, that's instantaneous. Species adapted to stable climates over millions of years suddenly faced conditions that changed faster than genetics could respond. But raw temperature increase wasn't the primary killer. Recent research identified something far more insidious. The warming triggered mega El Niño events, climate oscillations that make modern El Niños look gentle. These weren't temporary disruptions lasting months. They persisted for years, possibly decades at a time. Temperature gradients between equator and poles collapsed. Tropical heat spread toward high latitudes. Species that had evolved for cooler environments found themselves trapped in zones that became lethally hot. Here's where the cascade accelerated. Plants began dying on a massive scale. Not just individual trees, but entire forest ecosystems. The fossil record shows something called a fungal spike, elevated levels of fungal spores appearing globally in sediments right at the extinction boundary. Fungi decompose dead organic matter. Their explosion in abundance means one thing. The world's forests were dying faster than normal decay processes could handle. When forests collapsed, the planet lost its primary carbon sink. Living plants pull CO2 from the atmosphere through photosynthesis, storing it in wood and soil. Dead plants stop removing carbon. Worse, their decomposition releases stored carbon back into the atmosphere. The Siberian Traps kept pumping out greenhouse gases while Earth's biological systems for removing those gases shut down. Positive feedback loop. Warming killed plants, dead plants meant more atmospheric carbon meant more warming. On land, river systems changed character completely. Meandering rivers, which require vegetation to stabilize their banks, transformed into braided channels that shifted and wandered. Without plant roots holding soil in place, erosion accelerated. Sediments clogged waterways. The landscape itself became unstable. Marine environments faced a different horror. Warmer water holds less dissolved oxygen. Basic chemistry. As ocean temperatures climbed, oxygen concentrations dropped. Simultaneously, marine animals' metabolism sped up in the heat, requiring more oxygen precisely when less became available. Researchers modeled this lethal combination using modern species' oxygen requirements. The results matched fossil distributions with eerie precision. Species living in cold polar waters, where oxygen demands were already high, went extinct almost completely. Tropical species fared slightly better, already adapted to warmer, lower oxygen conditions. But even tropical oceans reached thresholds where metabolism outpaced oxygen supply. Animals essentially suffocated in warming water. The ocean circulation system began breaking down. Normally, cold polar water sinks and flows toward the equator along the seafloor, while warm tropical water moves poleward at the surface. This thermohaline circulation acts like a planetary conveyor belt, distributing heat and nutrients. As temperature gradients flattened, circulation weakened. Deep ocean zones became stagnant. Stagnant water turns anoxic. Without circulation bringing fresh oxygen to depth, deep ocean zones essentially died. Anaerobic bacteria took over, producing hydrogen sulfide, the same compound that gives rotten eggs their smell. Except this wasn't a small pocket of decay. Vast stretches of deep ocean became toxic. Some researchers suggest hydrogen sulfide periodically bubbled to the surface, poisoning shallow waters and even escaping into the atmosphere. Ocean acidification compounded every other problem. When CO2 dissolves in seawater, it forms carbonic acid. The more atmospheric CO2, the more acidic oceans become. Calcium carbonate, the material organisms used to build shells and skeletons, dissolves in acidic water. Species that had protected themselves with armor for hundreds of millions of years suddenly found their defenses literally dissolving. Trilobites, ancient arthropods that had survived previous extinction events, vanished entirely. They'd existed for over 270 million years, weathering countless environmental changes. The Permian Triassic event erased them permanently. Coral reefs, those complex ecosystems supporting thousands of species, collapsed globally. It would take 14 million years before reef-building organisms recovered enough to construct similar structures. On land, insects suffered their only known mass extinction. 8 entire orders disappeared. Insects typically survive environmental catastrophes because of their small size, rapid reproduction, and ability to exploit diverse food sources. Not this time. Even organisms at the base of food webs couldn't find refuge. What makes the Permian Triassic extinction uniquely devastating isn't just the raw percentage of species lost. It's the complete disruption of ecological functioning. Previous mass extinctions removed many species but left ecosystem structures largely intact. This event shattered those structures. Food webs didn't just simplify. They collapsed to nearly nothing and had to rebuild from scratch. The aftermath persisted for an almost incomprehensible duration. 5 to 6 million years of continued environmental instability. Survivors that managed to establish populations faced repeated setbacks as climate continued oscillating wildly. Carbon cycle perturbations, oxygen fluctuations, temperature spikes. Communities would begin recovering, then get knocked back by another pulse of environmental chaos. This explains why disaster taxa dominated for so long. Normal competitive dynamics couldn't operate. ecosystems never achieved enough stability for complex food webs to re-establish. Lystrosaurus wasn't necessarily better adapted than other organisms. It just happened to survive the initial extinction and could tolerate the ongoing instability. In a stable environment, more specialized species would have outcompeted. In perpetual crisis, being generalized and tolerant meant everything. Terrestrial ecosystems took 30 million years to fully recover. Not recover to pre-extinction diversity, that never happened. Many ecological roles that existed before the Permian Triassic boundary remained empty permanently. But 30 million years before ecosystems achieved new stable configurations, before food webs became complex again, before the planet hosted comparable biodiversity. Marine ecosystems showed similar timescales. Shallow marine communities recovered somewhat faster, within 5 to 10 million years. But deep ocean ecosystems and complex trophic structures took up to 50 million years. The extinction didn't just reset Earth's biological clock. It fundamentally altered what was possible. Why did this extinction exceed all others in severity? The Siberian Traps erupted at a uniquely vulnerable moment in Earth's history. Pangaea, the supercontinent, had just formed. Land masses concentrated in one area reduced total coastline length, eliminating shallow marine habitats that typically serve as refuges during environmental stress. Continental interiors, far from ocean's moderating influence, experienced extreme temperature swings. Species had fewer options for geographic escape. The volcanism itself reached unprecedented scales. Individual eruptions weren't necessarily larger than other volcanic events, but the duration and total volume exceeded anything else in the Phanerozoic record. 2 million years of sustained eruption. No previous volcanic episode approached that timescale. The planet's environmental systems couldn't buffer or absorb the continuous input of greenhouse gases. Most critically, the extinction occurred faster than recovery mechanisms could operate. Normal extinction events, even severe ones, happen slowly enough that evolution fills empty niches relatively quickly. The Permian Triassic event compressed catastrophic environmental change into a window too narrow for adaptive responses. Species either possessed pre-existing traits allowing survival or they died. No time for evolution to generate new solutions. Understanding how thoroughly the planet broke during this event makes the survival of any lineage remarkable. Every living organism today, from bacteria to blue whales, descends from something that made it through those 5 million years of hell. Our own distant ancestors, small cynodont synapsids barely distinguishable from other survivors, persisted when 90% of life could not. The Permian Triassic extinction wasn't merely Earth's deadliest event. It represented the closest life has come to complete extinction since complex organisms evolved. A few more degrees of warming, a bit more ocean acidification, slightly longer duration of environmental chaos, and perhaps nothing would have survived. Yet that scenario nearly happened. And the mechanisms that pushed Earth toward complete biosphere collapse reveal patterns that operate across all mass extinctions. The kill mechanisms during the Permian Triassic weren't random. They formed an interconnected cascade where each environmental change amplified the next. Understanding this cascade explains why the extinction exceeded all others in lethality. Start with the oceans. Marine ecosystems experienced a transition from oxygenated to anoxic conditions across most of the globe. Anoxic means depleted of oxygen. Euxinic means not only oxygen depleted but saturated with hydrogen sulfide. Seawater became actively toxic. This wasn't uniform. Different ocean basins showed regional variability in timing and intensity, but the overall pattern held. Decreased ocean ventilation coincided with rapidly rising temperatures. The combination proved lethal. Here's why. As water temperature increases, its capacity to hold dissolved oxygen decreases. Basic chemistry. Warmer water physically cannot contain as much oxygen as cooler water. At the same time, warmer temperatures increase metabolic rates in marine animals. Their bodies require more oxygen precisely when less is available. Research combining models of ocean conditions with animal metabolism and paleoceanographic records demonstrates this thermal oxygen squeeze killed most marine life. Species couldn't breathe. Their physiology demanded oxygen levels the environment could no longer provide. The geographic pattern of extinction confirms this mechanism. High-latitude species, especially those with high oxygen demands, were nearly completely wiped out. Polar regions, traditionally cooler and oxygen-rich, warmed dramatically. Animals evolved for cold, oxygen-rich water suddenly faced warm, oxygen-poor conditions. No evolutionary pathway existed from their current physiology to what survival required. Tropical species fared slightly better. Not because tropical waters remained cool or oxygen-rich, they didn't. But tropical organisms already possessed adaptations for warmer temperatures and lower oxygen. Their baseline tolerance was higher. Many still died, but survival rates exceeded those at higher latitudes. The fossil record shows species distribution before the extinction. Then, at the boundary, diversity collapses. The geographic signature matches what models predict for warming-driven oxygen loss. Theory and evidence align perfectly. But oxygen depletion alone doesn't explain the hydrogen sulfide. That requires understanding what happens when oceans stop mixing properly. Normal ocean circulation brings oxygen-rich surface water down into the depths. Upwelling brings nutrient-rich deep water to the surface. This constant mixing maintains oxygen levels throughout the water column and prevents toxic compounds from accumulating. During the Permian Triassic, warming disrupted this circulation. Temperature differences between surface and deep water decreased. Without strong temperature gradients, the physical engine driving ocean mixing weakened. Stratification increased. Surface water stopped sinking. Deep water stopped rising. In stagnant deep waters, oxygen ran out quickly as bacteria consumed it, decomposing organic matter. Once oxygen disappeared, anaerobic bacteria took over. These organisms produce hydrogen sulfide as a metabolic byproduct. In oxygenated water, other bacteria consume hydrogen sulfide, keeping it in check. Without oxygen, nothing stops hydrogen sulfide accumulation. Concentrations built up over thousands of years. Eventually, hydrogen sulfide saturated deep waters. Then it began rising toward the surface. Some researchers suggest hydrogen sulfide breached the ocean surface, releasing toxic gas into the atmosphere. Others think it remained dissolved but created a toxic layer throughout much of the ocean's depth. Either scenario meant death for most marine organisms. Hydrogen sulfide is directly toxic. It interferes with cellular respiration. Animals swimming through euxinic waters were essentially swimming through poison. The loss of marine species reached 96%. Nearly everything died. The extinction rate wasn't gradual. Bioturbators, organisms that churn through seafloor sediments, were extremely severely affected. The loss of the sedimentary mixed layer in many marine facies shows that animals stopped disturbing the seafloor. Nothing was left to dig, burrow, or mix sediments. The ocean floor became a dead zone. Reef building stopped for 14 million years. Shallow seas, typically refuges during environmental stress, offered no protection. Marine animals in reefs and shallow waters were especially hard hit. The structures that had provided habitat for millions of years simply ceased to exist. Specific groups that had dominated oceans for hundreds of millions of years vanished entirely. Trilobites, survivors of multiple previous mass extinctions, finally went extinct. They'd existed for over 250 million years. The Permian Triassic boundary ended them. Tabulate and rugose corals disappeared. Blastoid echinoderms, graptolites, eurypterids, acanthodians, placoderms, all gone. The extinction primarily affected organisms with calcium carbonate skeletons, especially those reliant on stable CO2 levels to produce their skeletons. Ocean acidification from dissolved atmospheric CO2 made skeleton construction impossible. Carbonate chemistry shifted beyond what these organisms could tolerate. Research identified 4 factors most essential to survival. Where in the water organisms lived. The mineralization of their shells. Species diversity within their genus. Sensitivity to acidification. Surviving groups generally had active control of circulation, elaborate gas exchange mechanisms, and light calcification. Heavily calcified organisms with simpler breathing apparatuses suffered the greatest loss of species diversity. This explains why certain groups survived while others didn't. Brachiopods, corals, bryozoans, foraminifers, ostracods, all heavily calcified benthic organisms, were devastated. Meanwhile, some less calcified, more physiologically flexible groups persisted at low levels. Planktonic populations underwent fundamental change. Eukaryotic algae, which had formed the base of marine food webs, were replaced by nitrogen-fixing bacteria, green sulfur bacteria, sulfate-reducing bacteria, and prasinophytes. The entire foundation of marine ecosystems shifted from complex eukaryotic organisms to simpler prokaryotic forms. On land, the devastation followed different pathways but achieved similar totality. Recent research published in Nature Communications identified the primary cause of prolonged post-extinction warming: the collapse of tropical forests. When global forests died, carbon sequestration essentially stopped. Photosynthesis removes CO2 from the atmosphere. Plants are Earth's natural mechanism for keeping CO2 in check. When nearly all trees died, that mechanism broke. The fungal spike in Permo-Triassic rocks worldwide confirms this. Elevated levels of fungal remains with few tree pollen grains. Fungi decompose dead organic matter. A planet-wide fungal spike means a planet-wide mass of dead vegetation being broken down. Nearly all the world's trees died en masse. The Glossopteris flora that characterized high-latitude Gondwana collapsed in Australia around 370,000 years before the Permian Triassic boundary. In western Gondwana the timing is less constrained but still likely occurred hundreds of thousands of years before the boundary. This collapse is indirectly marked by abrupt changes in river morphology from meandering to braided river systems. Rivers change character when vegetation dies. Without root systems stabilizing banks, rivers spread out, become shallow and multi-channeled. The widespread demise of rooted plants restructured hydrology across continents. Pollen studies from East Greenland showed dense gymnosperm woodlands before the event. Then, at the boundary, those woodlands disappeared. Smaller herbaceous plants including Lycopodiophyta increased in diversity. The world shifted from forests to scrubland. From complex plant communities to pioneer species. This vegetation collapse created a feedback loop. Volcanic eruptions released CO2. Plants normally absorb that CO2. With plants dead or dying, atmospheric CO2 continued climbing unchecked. More CO2 meant more warming. More warming meant more plant death. The cycle amplified itself. This explains why super greenhouse conditions persisted for 5 million years after the initial extinction. The planet's natural CO2 regulation system had broken. Volcanic inputs continued. Nothing removed the gas from the atmosphere at rates approaching volcanic output. Temperature climbed beyond anything Earth had experienced before or since. Scientists have used plant fossils to model a dramatic 10 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures. On land, surface temperatures increased by 6 to 10 degrees Celsius. Too rapid for life to evolve and adapt. Evolution operates on timescales of hundreds of thousands to millions of years. The Permian Triassic warming occurred in tens of thousands of years. No time for adaptive responses. Recent research on mega El Niño events adds another layer. The study, published in Science, shows that the collapse of temperature gradients in low and mid-latitudes was driven by prolonged, intense El Niño events far exceeding anything witnessed today. Researchers stated that essentially, it got too hot everywhere. Species were simply not equipped to adapt or evolve quickly enough. These mega El Niños created positive climate feedbacks. Incredibly warm conditions started in the tropics, then spread globally. Vegetation died back. With plants dying, Earth's CO2 removal mechanism failed, allowing continued volcanic CO2 buildup. This also explains why extinction on land occurred tens of thousands of years before extinction in the oceans. Terrestrial environments respond faster to atmospheric changes. Marine systems, with greater thermal inertia, lagged behind. But eventually, ocean warming caught up and exceeded what marine life could tolerate. Less than 1/3 of large animal species on land survived. The volcanic eruptions themselves caused immediate problems. Sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide poisoned the air. Ash and soot blocked sunlight, preventing plant growth. Food chains collapsed from the bottom up. With little greenery to eat, herbivores died. Predators followed. The speed of terrestrial collapse reveals something crucial about ecosystem fragility. Complex food webs depend on continuous energy flow from primary producers. When photosynthesis stops, everything above that level has days to weeks before starvation. Large animals, with high energy demands, died first and fastest. Yet from this near-total devastation, life found pathways to persist. Understanding what survived and how sets up the recovery story, a process that would test the limits of biological resilience for millions of years to come. In the aftermath, what survived wasn't selected by strength or size. The winners were organisms whose traits happened to match a world nobody could have predicted. Lystrosaurus. A dicynodont therapsid about the size of a pig, with a blunt snout, barrel chest, and sprawling limbs. Before the extinction, it was one species among hundreds. After, it dominated. Fossil evidence shows that Lystrosaurus accounted for approximately 90% of terrestrial vertebrates in the earliest Triassic. 90%. Imagine walking across early Triassic landscapes and seeing nothing but variations of one creature, from horizon to horizon, across every continent. This wasn't evolutionary superiority. This was luck combined with specific physiological advantages. Lystrosaurus could dig burrows, escaping surface temperature extremes. It had a generalist diet, feeding on whatever sparse vegetation remained. Its metabolism was efficient enough to survive on minimal food. Most importantly, it reproduced quickly. Where larger predators needed years to reach maturity, Lystrosaurus populations could rebound within seasons. Scientists call these survivors disaster taxa. Species that explode in abundance immediately after catastrophic events, filling ecological space left vacant by extinctions. They're not the most advanced organisms. They're the most opportunistic, the most flexible, the most boringly successful in conditions where nothing else can compete because nothing else exists. The pattern repeated in the oceans. Marine post-extinction faunas were dominated by a handful of forms. Bivalves like Chlorea, Unionites, and Eumorphotis spread across seafloors worldwide. Conodonts Clarkina and Hendiatus became ubiquitous. The inarticulate brachiopod Lingularia, with its simple body plan and minimal calcification needs, thrived in acidified waters that killed more complex relatives. What's striking isn't that these species survived, but where they appeared. Before the extinction, marine species showed clear geographic distributions. Certain organisms lived only in specific regions, adapted to local conditions. After the boundary, that geographic structure collapsed. Species previously found only in one ocean suddenly appeared globally. Researchers describe this as cosmopolitanism, a planetary homogenization of life. The modern analogy makes it visceral. If you asked where to find kangaroos today, the answer is Australia. Now imagine a catastrophe occurs, and afterward, kangaroos appear in massive numbers across every continent. Europe, Africa, Asia, the Americas. Everywhere you look, kangaroos. That's what early Triassic oceans resembled. Fossils show communities going from richly diverse assemblages to boringly alike groups, no matter where you sample. This homogenization reveals something profound about how ecosystems collapse and rebuild. Diversity doesn't return immediately. Complex food webs with specialized niches take millions of years to re-establish. In the immediate aftermath, life reverts to simpler patterns. Generalists dominate. Specialists vanish. Ecosystems flatten into crude approximations of what existed before. But even disaster taxa faced challenges. The extinction event itself lasted perhaps 60,000 years. The aftermath persisted for 5 million. Volcanic activity didn't stop at the boundary. The Siberian Traps continued erupting. Carbon cycle disruptions continued through the entire early Triassic. Communities that survived the initial extinction and began rebuilding were hit again by recurring environmental shocks. Temperature spikes. Ocean anoxia returning impulses. Acidification events. Each wave of stress interrupted recovery. Terrestrial ecosystems endured boom and bust cycles for 8 million years before stabilizing. Populations would grow, ecosystems would begin complexifying, then another environmental shock would knock everything back to simpler states. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, repeated across geological time. The low diversity of surviving vertebrates created its own problems. With few species present, ecosystems lacked redundancy. If one disaster taxon declined, nothing filled its role. Food webs remained fragile, vulnerable to any perturbation. Contrast this with pre-extinction ecosystems where multiple species performed similar functions. Lose one, others compensate. In the early Triassic, there were no backup species. Marine ecosystems faced additional constraints. Research shows that taxonomic diversity at the community level didn't recover to pre-extinction levels during the early or middle Triassic. It reached only a low plateau after each extinction pulse and remained depressed well into the late Triassic. Full ecological recovery, where complex trophic structures and diverse guilds re-established, took roughly 50 million years. That's not a typo. 50 million years. While taxonomic diversity, the raw number of species, recovered in 5 to 10 million years, true ecosystem function took 5 times longer. Having species present doesn't mean having a functioning ecosystem. You need the right species in the right roles with the right interactions. Rebuilding that structure from near zero is astonishingly slow. Why did recovery take so long? Several factors compounded. First, the carbon cycle remained disrupted. Atmospheric CO2 stayed elevated because volcanic inputs continued while biological carbon sequestration remained weak. Without dense vegetation or diverse marine plankton communities, CO2 removal rates stayed far below normal. This perpetuated greenhouse conditions, maintaining environmental stress. Second, ocean chemistry stayed hostile. Anoxic zones expanded during warm periods. Acidification events recurred whenever volcanic pulses added more CO2. Marine organisms trying to rebuild calcium carbonate structures faced repeated setbacks. Reefs didn't begin reforming until 14 million years into the Triassic. That's 14 million years without the ocean's most productive ecosystems. Third, evolutionary innovation takes time. After mass extinctions, surviving lineages diversify to fill empty niches. But evolution doesn't work instantly. Mutations arise randomly. Selection operates over generations. Beneficial traits must accumulate. New body plans must stabilize. For complex organisms with long generation times, meaningful evolutionary change requires hundreds of thousands to millions of years. The fossil record documents this slow rebuilding. Early Triassic communities show low guild diversity. Guild refers to groups of species that exploit resources in similar ways. Before the extinction, multiple species of filter feeders, multiple species of predators, multiple species of burrowers coexisted. After, each guild had 1 or 2 representatives at most. Ecosystems functioned, barely, but lacked the complexity and resilience of pre-extinction systems. Geographic patterns of recovery varied. Some regions rebounded faster than others. Studies of localized marine ecosystems, like the Paris biota in what's now Idaho, show recovery occurring in 1.3 million years. But that's recovery of basic ecosystem function, not restoration of pre-extinction diversity or complexity. These were simple communities compared to Permian reefs. On land, the situation was even more extreme. Terrestrial vertebrate fauna took 30 million years to fully recover numerically and ecologically. Not until the late Triassic did land ecosystems display the diversity and complexity seen in the Permian. That's when dinosaurs, pterosaurs, crocodiles, archosaurs, amphibians, and mammaliforms became abundant and diverse. The world we associate with the Mesozoic emerged only after 3 decades of millions of years rebuilding from near oblivion. What determined which lineages eventually diversified? The answer involves both chance and contingency. Survivors at the boundary had won the first lottery, possessing traits that allowed persistence through catastrophe. But recovery success required different traits. Flexibility in diet and habitat. Efficient reproduction. Ability to exploit newly available niches. Lineages that survived but couldn't adapt to changing conditions during recovery stagnated or went extinct in secondary waves. The early Triassic world was simultaneously empty and full. empty of diversity, of complex ecosystems, of specialized organisms, full of opportunity for any lineage capable of exploiting it. Disaster taxa like Lystrosaurus thrive not because they were advanced, but because they faced no competition. Remove competition, and even modest capabilities become sufficient for dominance. This dynamic explains the peculiar nature of post-extinction evolution. After major extinctions, life doesn't gradually rebuild pre-existing structures. It experiments, tries new body plans, tests different ecological strategies. Most experiments fail. Some succeed spectacularly, establishing lineages that will dominate for tens or hundreds of millions of years. The Permian Triassic boundary marks one such turning point. The Paleozoic world, with its characteristic fauna and ecosystems, died. What emerged during the Triassic recovery was fundamentally different. New dominant groups, new ecosystem structures, new rules for who succeeds and who fails. Yet even as life slowly rebuilt, the planet itself continued changing. Continental drift proceeded. Pangaea persisted as a supercontinent but began showing signs of future fragmentation. Climate zones shifted. Ocean circulation patterns evolved. The stage was being set for the next great radiation of life, though nobody watching the barren early Triassic landscapes could have predicted what was coming. The emptiness didn't last. It couldn't. Earth operates on momentum, chemical cycles, physical processes that continue regardless of biological catastrophe. Rivers still flowed, carrying nutrients to the seas. Volcanic activity persisted, releasing gases that weathered rocks and fed primitive organisms. Solar radiation still reached the surface, driving whatever photosynthesis survived. The planet provided the raw materials. Life had to figure out what to do with them. By the Middle Triassic, about 10 to 15 million years after the extinction, something shifted. Not a sudden transformation, but a gradual acceleration in the pace of evolutionary innovation. Survivors had stabilized. Populations had grown. And now, with ecological space still largely vacant, natural selection began favoring not just survival, but expansion. Organisms that could exploit multiple food sources, that could tolerate varying conditions, that reproduced efficiently, these lineages spread rapidly across landscapes and seascapes that offered minimal resistance. On land, the synapsid lineage that would eventually produce mammals continued evolving. Cynodonts emerged, dog-sized predators and omnivores with increasingly mammal-like features. More efficient jaws. Better hearing. Possible fur. These weren't mammals yet, but they were heading that direction, experimenting with traits that would define an entire class of animals tens of millions of years later. Alongside them, early archosaurs appeared. The archosaur group would eventually split into two major branches, one leading to crocodilians, the other leading to dinosaurs and birds. In the late Triassic, dinosaurs made their entrance. Small, bipedal, unremarkable at first. Nothing about early dinosaurs suggested they would dominate terrestrial ecosystems for 160 million years. They were simply another group of reptiles trying to survive in a world still recovering from catastrophe. But they possessed certain advantages. Upright limb posture that improved locomotion efficiency. Relatively large brains for their body size. Fast growth rates. These traits didn't guarantee success, but they provided options. And in an unpredictable world, options matter. The oceans told a parallel story. Reef ecosystems, absent for 14 million years after the extinction, began rebuilding in the Middle Triassic. Not with the same organisms, those were gone, but with new reef builders. Corals returned, but different families than dominated Permian reefs. Marine reptiles diversified into the ecological roles left vacant by extinct groups. Ichthyosaurs evolved streamlined bodies for fast swimming. Plesiosaurs developed long necks for hunting in different ways. Placodonts specialized in crushing shellfish. Each group represented an evolutionary experiment, testing whether a particular body plan and lifestyle could work in post-extinction oceans. But here's what makes this recovery period so instructive. The late Triassic world looked nothing like the Permian world. Same planet, same basic physics and chemistry, completely different biological cast. Pangaea still dominated geography, but the ecosystems populating that supercontinent bore little resemblance to what came before. This reveals something fundamental about how life responds to mass extinction. Recovery isn't restoration. It's renovation. The old blueprints are discarded. New designs are tested. Most fail. A few succeed spectacularly. The late Triassic also demonstrated that recovery from mass extinction doesn't follow a smooth upward trajectory. Around 201 million years ago, Earth experienced another major extinction event at the Triassic-Jurassic boundary. Not as severe as the end Permian, but significant enough to eliminate roughly 70 to 75% of species. The cause appears linked to volcanic activity associated with the breakup of Pangaea and the opening of the Atlantic Ocean. Once again, massive carbon dioxide release. Once again, rapid climate warming. Once again, ocean acidification. Life had barely finished recovering from one catastrophe when another struck. This second extinction disproportionately affected certain groups while barely touching others. Many large amphibians vanished. Several archosaur lineages went extinct. But dinosaurs, still relatively minor players in late Triassic ecosystems, survived. And in the aftermath, with many competitors removed, dinosaurs underwent explosive diversification. By the early Jurassic, they had become the dominant large terrestrial animals. Their success wasn't inevitable. It was contingent on surviving the Triassic-Jurassic boundary while many other groups did not. What does this tell us about mass extinctions and recovery? First, that recovery timelines depend on the severity and nature of the extinction. The end Permian, with its combination of rapid warming, ocean anoxia, acid rain, and ecosystem collapse, required 10 million years for basic recovery and 30 million for full restoration of terrestrial ecosystem complexity. The Triassic-Jurassic event, less severe in its mechanisms, allowed faster rebound. Second, that which groups dominate after extinction depends partly on pre-existing traits, but largely on chance. Dinosaurs didn't dominate because they were superior to other Triassic reptiles. They dominated because they survived when others didn't, then exploited the resulting opportunities. The pattern repeats throughout Earth's history. 5 major mass extinctions punctuate the Phanerozoic Eon, each reshaping life's trajectory. The late Ordovician extinction, caused by glaciation and sea level changes. The late Devonian extinctions, possibly linked to plant evolution altering atmospheric composition. The end Permian, Earth's closest approach to complete sterilization. The Triassic-Jurassic boundary. And finally, the end Cretaceous asteroid impact that eliminated non-avian dinosaurs. Each event cleared ecological space. Each allowed previously minor groups to become dominant. Each reset the evolutionary clock, forcing life to rebuild from whatever survived. But mass extinctions aren't just destructive. They're also creative, in a brutal sense. By eliminating dominant groups, they allow innovation. Mammals remained small and ecologically marginal for 160 million years while dinosaurs dominated. Only after the end Cretaceous extinction did mammals diversify into the full range of body sizes and ecological roles. Birds, despite evolving flight during the Jurassic, remained relatively limited in diversity until after non-avian dinosaurs vanished. Remove the dominant players, and previously suppressed groups explode into vacant niches. The Paleozoic era, spanning 290 million years from the Cambrian explosion to the end Permian extinction, represents one complete cycle of this pattern. Complex life emerged. Diversified. Filled ecosystems on land and in the sea. Developed intricate food webs, specialized forms, stable communities. Then catastrophe struck. And almost everything ended. The Mesozoic era that followed, the age of dinosaurs, represents the recovery and subsequent rediversification. A new cycle with new dominant groups, new ecosystems, new rules. That cycle also ended 66 million years ago, when an asteroid impact triggered the end Cretaceous extinction. And we're living in the recovery period, the Cenozoic era, when mammals and birds occupy the roles dinosaurs once filled. Earth's biological history is therefore not a steady progression toward increasing complexity or advancement. It's a series of boom and bust cycles. Long periods of relative stability punctuated by catastrophic extinctions, followed by recovery periods when life experiments with new forms and strategies. The Permian Triassic boundary represents the most dramatic of these transitions, the moment when life came closest to complete failure. That it didn't fail completely, that survivors persisted and eventually diversified, testifies to life's resilience. But it also reveals life's fragility. Remove too many links from an ecosystem, disrupt too many chemical cycles, push environmental conditions beyond tolerable limits, and even 290 million years of evolutionary success offers no protection. Today, we're conducting our own extinction experiment. Atmospheric carbon dioxide levels are rising faster than at any time in the past 66 million years, possibly faster than any time since the end Permian. Global temperatures are increasing. Oceans are acidifying. Species are disappearing at rates hundreds of times above background levels. We're not at Permian Triassic severity yet, but we're moving in that direction, and we're doing it with remarkable speed. The difference is that this time, the cause isn't volcanic eruptions or asteroid impacts. It's us. A single species, Homo sapiens, is altering planetary chemistry and climate at scales previously achievable only by massive geological events. The Paleozoic era ended in fire, suffocation, and acid. What emerged from that ending was a planet fundamentally transformed, populated by organisms that would have been unrecognizable to any Permian creature. Life continued, but not the same life. Recovery occurred, but not restoration. The world moved forward, carrying scars that remain visible in the fossil record 252 million years later. That's the pattern extinction establishes. Not death of all life, but death of familiar life. Not permanent ending, but permanent transformation. The question facing us now is whether we want to be part of the next transformation, or whether we'll join the trilobites, the tabulate corals, and the glossopterous forests in the fossil record of extinct failures. Earth will continue regardless. Life will persist in some form. But which forms survive, and which vanish forever, that's being decided right now, in real time, by choices we make daily. The Paleozoic era teaches us that recovery is possible. It also teaches us that recovery takes millions of years, and what emerges looks nothing like what was lost. The Permian Triassic extinction stands as Earth's most severe test of biological resilience, a moment when the planet approached the threshold of complete sterilization. 96% of marine species vanished. 70% of land vertebrates disappeared. Even insects, those tireless survivors of every previous catastrophe, lost entire orders to the void. The numbers become abstract at this scale, almost meaningless, until you consider what they represent. Entire evolutionary lineages, hundreds of millions of years in the making, erased in perhaps 60,000 years. What makes this extinction uniquely terrifying isn't just magnitude. It's the mechanism. A cascade of environmental failures where each problem amplified the next until the planet's life support system simply broke. Volcanic eruptions triggered warming. Warming killed forests. Dead forests meant carbon accumulated unchecked. More carbon meant more warming. Ocean circulation collapsed. Oxygen disappeared from seawater. Hydrogen sulfide saturated the depths. Temperature gradients flattened. Mega El Niño events persisted for decades. Acid rain stripped nutrients from soil. Marine creatures suffocated in warming waters while their shells dissolved in acidifying seas. The Siberian Traps weren't just large. They were sustained. 2 million years of eruption, cooking through coal deposits and organic sediments, releasing greenhouse gases at rates that overwhelmed every natural buffer. The planet tried to compensate. Photosynthesis removes CO2. Weathering locks carbon in rocks. Ocean chemistry absorbs atmospheric changes. But these processes operate on timescales of hundreds of thousands to millions of years. The Siberian Traps dumped carbon into the atmosphere faster than any removal mechanism could respond. Positive feedbacks took over. The climate system entered runaway mode. Life, which had spent 290 million years building complex ecosystems, watched those ecosystems collapse from the bottom up. Primary producers died first, cutting energy flow at its source. Herbivores followed within months. Predators starved soon after. Food webs didn't simplify. They shattered. What remained were fragments, disconnected survivors in a world that no longer made biological sense. Recovery took 10 million years just to restore basic ecosystem function. 30 million years passed before terrestrial vertebrate communities matched pre-extinction complexity. Marine ecosystems required 50 million years to rebuild the intricate trophic structures and specialized gills that characterized Permian oceans. Half of 100 million years. And even then, what emerged wasn't restoration of what was lost. It was something fundamentally different. New dominant groups. New ecosystem architectures. New rules for survival. The Paleozoic era, that 290 million year span from the Cambrian explosion to the end Permian catastrophe, represents one complete cycle of life's experimentation on Earth. It began with the sudden appearance of complex body plans and hard-shelled organisms. It developed through the colonization of land, the rise of forests, the evolution of flight in insects, the diversification of fish, the emergence of tetrapods. It peaked with intricate ecosystems on every continent and in every ocean, billions of organisms filling every available niche. Then it ended. Almost completely. What survived wasn't the strongest or most advanced. Lystrosaurus wasn't superior to the synapsids that vanished. Small burrowing reptiles weren't more evolved than their extinct relatives. Marine bivalves that spread globally after the extinction weren't better designed than the diverse communities they replaced. Survivors possess traits that happen to match an unpredictable catastrophe. Small size, low energy needs, flexible diet, ability to tolerate unstable conditions. These weren't advantages in the stable Permian world. They became advantages only when that world burned. This reveals something crucial about extinction and survival. Success during stable times doesn't predict success during crisis. Specialists dominate when conditions remain constant. Generalists persist when everything changes. The Permian Triassic boundary rewrote Earth's ecological rules in real time, and only organisms capable of abandoning old strategies survived to write new ones. Today, we're running a similar experiment. Atmospheric CO2 is rising at rates comparable to the end Permian, perhaps faster. Global temperatures are increasing. Ocean pH is dropping. Species are disappearing at hundreds of times the background extinction rate. We haven't reached Permian Triassic severity, not yet, but the mechanisms look disturbingly familiar. Rapid carbon release overwhelming natural buffers. Warming triggering positive feedbacks. Ecosystems stressed beyond their adaptive capacity. The difference is agency. The Siberian Traps didn't choose to erupt. Continental drift didn't decide to form Pangea. Geological processes operated according to physics and chemistry, indifferent to biological consequences. We have choice. We understand what's happening. We can see the trajectory. Whether we change course or accelerate toward our own boundary event remains an open question. The Paleozoic era ended in the greatest catastrophe complex life has faced. What followed was millions of years of struggle, experimentation, failure, and eventual success. Life continued because a few organisms, through luck and circumstance, carried the genetic potential for recovery. Their descendants rebuilt the world, but it took longer than our species has existed. Longer than our genus has existed. Longer than our entire evolutionary family has existed. That's the timescale of true recovery from severe mass extinction. Not years or centuries. Millions of years. And what emerges looks nothing like what was lost. The Mesozoic world of dinosaurs bore no resemblance to the Permian world of synapsids. The Cenozoic world of mammals shares little with either. Each era represents a fundamentally different experiment in how to organize life on a planet. We're living in the aftermath of the last major extinction, the one that ended the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. Our existence depends on that catastrophe. Mammals remained small and marginal for 160 million years while dinosaurs dominated. Only after the end Cretaceous extinction did our ancestors diversify, grow large, explore new ecological roles. Every human alive today descended from survivors of that event. Small, burrowing, generalist mammals that persisted when 75% of species could not. The Permian Triassic extinction reminds us that survival isn't guaranteed. Dominance offers no protection. Complexity provides no immunity. When environmental conditions shift beyond tolerable limits, evolution's timescale becomes irrelevant. Adapt instantly or die. Most die. The few that survive do so not through superiority, but through possessing traits that happen to match unpredictable new conditions. Trilobites survived 4 previous mass extinctions across 250 million years. The end Permian erased them. Tabulate and rugose corals built reefs for hundreds of millions of years. They vanished completely. Glossopteris forests covered entire continents. They collapsed in hundreds of thousands of years. Success across deep time means nothing when the planet itself transforms. So what does this mean for us? We're conducting real-time experiments in atmospheric chemistry, ocean acidification, and rapid climate change. We're removing species faster than they can evolve. We're simplifying ecosystems that took millions of years to achieve current complexity. We're testing whether human civilization can survive conditions we're creating. The Permian Triassic extinction suggests that complex, specialized systems are vulnerable. That rapid environmental change overwhelms adaptive capacity. That recovery takes timescales measured in geological eras, not human lifetimes. But it also demonstrates that life persists. Not all life. Not familiar life. But life in some form continues. The question isn't whether Earth will survive our impacts. It will. The question is whether we'll be part of what survives, or whether we'll join the catalog of extinct experiments. Whether humans in the far future will study our fossil record and wonder what went wrong. Whether some post-human intelligence will analyze the sharp boundary in rock layers marking the Anthropocene extinction and calculate that 90% of large mammals vanished in less than 100,000 years. The Paleozoic era began with explosion and ended with annihilation. It contained 290 million years of evolutionary innovation, ecological complexity, and biological success. None of it mattered when conditions exceeded tolerance limits. What mattered was which random organisms possessed traits allowing persistence through conditions nobody could have predicted. The survivors weren't chosen by merit. They were filtered by catastrophe. We had the knowledge to avoid becoming another extinction boundary. We understand the mechanisms. We can model the outcomes. We see the trajectory. The Permian Triassic extinction wasn't preventable. It resulted from geological processes beyond any organism's control. Our current trajectory is different. It's driven by choices. By economic systems. By political decisions. By collective action or inaction. That means it's changeable. But only if change occurs fast enough to matter. The timescale is what makes this urgent. Geological processes operate slowly. Evolution operates slowly. Recovery operates slowly. But extinction, when it comes, happens fast. The end Permian proved that. 60,000 years from stable ecosystems to near-complete collapse. On human timescales, that's incomprehensibly long. On geological timescales, it's instantaneous. We're currently operating on timescales that match extinction, not recovery. Carbon release rates approaching volcanic eruption events. Temperature change rates exceeding most of the past 66 million years. Extinction rates hundreds of times above background. The Paleozoic era teaches us that planets can recover from almost anything. But recovery looks nothing like restoration. It's transformation. The world moves forward, permanently altered, carrying scars visible for hundreds of millions of years. Life continues, but not the same life. Ecosystems function, but not the same ecosystems. The survivors build new worlds from the ruins of old ones. And those new worlds, given enough time, develop their own complexity, their own diversity, their own intricate balance. Until the next catastrophe resets everything again. That's the pattern. Stability, catastrophe, recovery, stability, catastrophe, recovery. Earth's biological history is written in these cycles. The Permian Triassic boundary marks the most extreme transition, the closest approach to total failure. It stands as evidence that even 290 million years of evolutionary success offers no guarantee of continued existence. That life is simultaneously resilient enough to survive near complete destruction and fragile enough to be pushed to that brink. That the difference between survival and extinction often comes down to chance, to possessing the right traits at the right moment, to being small enough, flexible enough, efficient enough to persist when everything else fails. Every living organism today carries the legacy of Permian Triassic survivors in its DNA. Every ecosystem functions according to rules established during the long recovery. Every species alive is here because some unknown ancestor, probably small and unremarkable, made it through Earth's worst day. We're all products of that catastrophe, descendants of disaster taxa that inherited an empty planet and slowly, over millions of years, filled it with new forms of life. The question now is whether we'll be ancestors or fossils. Whether future organisms will carry our legacy forward or study our remains. Whether we'll navigate the crisis we're creating or become another cautionary tale preserved in sedimentary layers. The Paleozoic era ended in fire and suffocation. The Mesozoic era ended with asteroid impact. The Cenozoic era's ending hasn't been written yet. We're writing it now, in real time, with every choice about energy systems, land use, ocean health, atmospheric composition. The Permian Triassic extinction shows us what's possible when planetary systems break. Whether we heed that warning determines what comes next.